Somebody sets aside a female for his Korban Pesach, and a Korban Pesach has to be a male. As it says in the Posuk, said Tomim Zochor Ben Shona, it has to be 1 year of age, less than 1 year of age, and has to be male. Or Zochor Ben Shtei Shonim, it's too old, it's already in the second year, and he set it aside as a Pesach before Pesach, before Yudalad, before the time of bringing the Korban Pesach. Yira, the animal has to graze until it gets a blemish, which permits you to redeem it. And it's sold. And he brings with the money Pesach, a Pesach. Now, this sources in the Mishnah in Psachim 97b. That there it says that you sell it, and what do you do with the money? You use it to bring korbanos when the Mizbeach is, use that money when the Mizbeach is vacant of having any animals on it. I guess the Mishnah cites that the Rambam changes the Lashon HaMishnah. He says you have to buy a Pesach, and he doesn't say they use it for just regular korbanos on the Mizbeach. So the Gemara in 98a explains that what the Mishnah says, that the money should go to a present meaning for the Mizbeach to be fulfilled, is the Mishnah is according to those who say that Balei Chaim Nidochim, that the Baal Chai is pushed off, that if it was sanctified as a korban, and in its lifetime it had a psul when it was sanctified, you can bring it on the Mizbeach, even though if it has passed, because once it was unable to be used, it's unable to be used. Since as soon as he made it Hegdish, it was pushed off. That Man Yoma is of the opinion it's pushed off forever, and you can't bring it as a korban. Therefore, when this animal became postal at the time of sanctification, like over here where a female was used for Korban Pesach, then it can never be used again. And those who disagree have the opinion that no, that as long as the animal is alive, you can bring in the animal itself once the blemish has passed. But everyone agrees that it doesn't go back to its original to be kosher if you were able to bring it, and then it became postal for a reason, even though as time went on, the psul went by. And the Kesef Mishnah therefore explains, since the Rambam paskins, according to the Man Yoma that says Ein Balei Chaim Nidochim, he writes in Psulim Mikdoshim, Kochim Chaim, that were in the Azorah when the Beis HaMikdash became postal, so therefore at that moment you can't use them. He writes they don't become pushed off, even though you can't bring them. But when the Beis HaMikdash will be rebuilt, you can bring them, or the Mizbeach fixed, because Ein Balei Chaim Nidochim, because the fact that they couldn't be brought for a moment doesn't push them off forever. So too, Ma'aseh Korbanos, he also mentions that a behema of Shutfim, and one of them sanctified half of it, you can't bring half a korban, and then he purchased the other half and he sanctified it. So according to the Rambam, you can now bring the entire animal, even though at one point you couldn't bring it. So you see the Rambam is of the din that it's not pushed off forever. But even though at the beginning, when it was half kodesh, it didn't have a full sanctification. It only had sanctification for money for the half that was his. Still, we're talking about Balei Chaim, and Balei Chaim are not pushed off. Therefore, it's kosher to bring it when he takes away the impediment, which is he purchases the other half. Therefore, the Rambam changes the Lashon of the Mishnah, that he's of the opinion that after the cave has a mum and it's redeemed, you can bring with the money a korban Pesach, because it's as if the animal is being brought. When you redeem it, it's like bringing the animal itself. and he doesn't have to give the money to the Pidyon, to the Mizbeach. The Leicha Mishnah questions this. Where did the Kesef Mishnah make a connection between Balei Chaim Nidochim, where the animals are pushed off, between the din of whether the money goes to Nedova or for Korban Pesach? But the Gemara proves that the Mishnah is the opinion that Balei Chaim are pushed off is from the fact that you can't bring the female when he first made it. You should say, well, a Korban Pesach, when it's not a Korban Pesach, what's the din of a Korban Pesach? It can be a Shlomim. And a Shlomim doesn't have the rule that it has to be a male, it can be a female as well. So let us just say that this female, instead of being a Korban Pesach, should be a Shlomim. And this is so, even though that if you sanctify a Pesach throughout the years of Shlomim, even though Pesach is only a Zocha, and since the Mishnah writes that you have to wait till it gets a mum, we see from that the Mishnah is of the opinion that since at the moment that he made it, it could not be a Pesach, therefore it's pushed off forever, because the Mishnah is of the opinion that Balei Chaim are pushed off, and it has nothing to do with what to do with the money. So the question comes up: why does the Rambam say that if it does have a mum, you sell it and you buy a Pesach? Maybe you should just leave it Shlomim. So the Mishnah cites, and so does the Marie Korkus, that the source of the Rambam is a Brisa. In Tmura 19a, we learned somebody sets aside a female for his Pesach, then it has to wait till it has a blemish. Then you buy with the money of Pesach, literally the words of the Rambam. And we'll soon explain that you can't bring it as a Shlomim, because the Bailam caused the action to happen. It's called pushing it off with your own hands, as opposed to a side halacha which caused it to be pushed off. Regarding the text of the Kesef Mishnah, in the Mishnah Psochim, the Yiblu Dom of the Nedova, it's brought down in Rashi and Tosis. It's a different girsa. V'yovi b'domeh or Shlomim, that you can actually buy a Shlomim, which would be what a Pesach is the rest of the year. And Tosis writes in the name of Rabbeinu Tam that if it's before Pesach, you would buy a Pesach. But if we're talking about after Pesach, then you would buy a Shlomim. Like the end of the Brisa, if there's money left over from money of the Pesach, or an animal was left over that wasn't used for Pesach, here too the rule is it has to wait. You have to wait and let it graze until it has a blemish, and you bring a Shlomim. And there's no difference whether it was a male or a female, and that's what the Rambam is talking about. The Tosis Yontiv and the Mishnah cites the Gemara in 98 that the Mishnah will separate if you set aside a female is of the opinion of Balei Chaim Nidochim, and that Balei Chaim can be pushed off. And Rashi, instead of explaining the proof is from it itself cannot be brought as a Shlomim, and that proves that it cannot be, it's pushed off. The Yonda says, according to the Rambam, why shouldn't you bring it right away as Shlomim? Why do you have to let it graze until it has a blemish? Until the female has a blemish. Bring it right away as a Shlomim. And the answer is, even according to the one that says that Balei Chaim are not pushed off, the female cannot be brought, because by his mistaken action, it's considered that he pushed it off physically so, and therefore you can't bring it. And that's the difference between where it's a halachic problem, or he made it into a problem, and therefore when it cannot be brought by itself, you can't prove that Balei Chaim are pushed off or not, because here it's different. He pushed it off. When we're talking about Balei Chaim Nidochim, is usually where the animal was the cause, not the person. And the whole proof from the Mishnah that the Balei Chaim pushed off is what it says, you should leave it in the Nedova. Otherwise, you could, if we would say, you could use it for Pesach or Shlomim. As Rambam Paskins, You should bring that Bali Chaim are not pushed off forever, and you can bring with the money of the redeemed female that has a blemish, you can bring her Pesach, or after Pesach Shlomim, because the Rambam is of the opinion that ain't Bali Chaim Nidochim. But the female itself is, even according to the one who says ain't Bali Chaim Nidochim, you cannot bring it Shlomim. The Chacham Tzvi disagrees with the Teres Yontiv, and the Mishnah that is talking about separating in the Keva is only according to the Man Yom Bali Chaim Nidochim. And still the Rambam paskins that you have to wait, and it itself cannot be brought as a Shlomim even after Pesach, because we're afraid that he'll bring it before, as a korban before he brings the Pesach, and that cannot be done. And we'll see more about this in Halacha Vov. If the mum didn't happen to this female animal until after he brought his korban Pesach, Yovi B'domov Shlomim. Then the Rambam says, as we learned earlier in the Gemara, and after that, you can bring a Shlomim. As a Mishnah, since we learned in Masechet Shkolim, whatever's left over from a korban Pesach is used as a Shlomim. Whoever set aside for something to korban Pesach and he has extra money, it's a Shlomim, because the whole year a korban Pesach can be brought as a Shlomim.